ChatGPT is the most useful tool that has come out in my lifetime. I've said it. Besides Microsoft Excel, it is the tool I use as an entrepreneur more than any other tool, hands down, bar none, games that match, period. Like any new technology, there are pros and cons to it. Like any tool, there are ways to use it and ways not to use it. I just thought it would be fun to walk you through how I use it in a single week, kind of walk you through my search history, walk you through my ChatGPT history, and let you see all of the different ways I'm using it. And I'm just going to give you like all the different ways I'm using it, from doing simple research to preparing complex documents to not getting radicalized on the internet to forming political opinions with research to answering simple questions. In my opinion, there has not been a tool for entrepreneurship more mind-blowing than ChatGPT in my life. Here's a quick view of all the ways I've used it for the past 2 weeks. All right, I thought this would be fun to walk you all through a tool that I use all day, every day. As an entrepreneur who runs 7 companies full-time, the main thing that I do is I problem solve. I come up against some big hairy bottleneck and I have to figure it out. Come up against some big hairy bottleneck and I have to figure it out. And that's all day, every day. Just different, strange bottlenecks that I run into all day, every day. I have found that my favorite tool, maybe of all the tools, maybe ever, is ChatGPT. I use ChatGPT like a fiend. I use it all day, every day. I use ChatGPT so much that on my phone, my power button, I've remapped it so that when I double tap it, it's ChatGPT. Like, that's how much I use it. I double tap it all the time. So I just wanted to give you all a glimpse of how much I'm using this tool. And this is not even the biggest way I'm using it. But if you're not using ChatGPT, I think you're missing out hugely, hugely. I use it personal, I use it business, and I'm just going to go down the list of the things I used ChatGPT for in the last week and talk about how much time I saved. So let's go through these one by one so you can just see the sheer amount of stuff. I requested today a Jimmy Dean croissant cooking recipe because on the Costco box for Jimmy Dean croissant sandwiches, it has the instructions. But when you pull the little plastic ones with the actual croissant in out of the box, it doesn't have the instructions on the croissant itself. My daughter walked up to me and said, "Can you cook this for me?" She's 8. And instead of walking into the garage where our upright freezer is to find the cooking recipe, because I couldn't remember it, am I cooking this for 2 minutes aside, or am I cooking this for 1 minute aside, or am I cooking this for 1 minute and all, or am I cooking this for 2 minutes at all? And I didn't want to burn it because it had those things burnt, and it's pretty stinking gross. And so I just clicked, hey, are the cooking instructions for Jimmy Dean croissants from Costco? And it tells me immediately. So it just pulls up, it does the web search, it looks at the Jimmy Dean's croissants, 55 seconds, turn it, whatever the crap. I'm like, okay, I've done it enough to know that is accurate. Now, ChatGPT has a ghost that it will make up stuff if it doesn't clearly know, and you've got to watch it. But I remembered it was something, term it something, that added up to me. I looked at the croissant when it was done. Number 2, my wife sent me this South Carolina bill that is, I don't know, she was like, hey, this is going to affect us. And I was like, I don't have any time to read SB 3876. And so what I did is I just asked ChatGPT. I didn't have time to read like a proposed bill in the South Carolina blah, 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 blah. Hey, could you summarize South Carolina Bill HV 3876? Give me the basics. I'm not exactly sure how my wife thought that was going to apply to us, but sure as crap saved me a lot of time, and it let me respond back to my wife and at least understand what the basics is. I'm not sure how she thought that would apply to us, but we'll have a conversation later, and I'll be able to look up my ChatGPT history and go back to the summary of the bill. This one, I can't share this one because it has some personal information and some client information. But what I can say is I've been working through an SBA loan because of Hurricane Helene, and they keep requesting information and they keep having to send them more, and they request bids and I send them more. And so every time that they request something more, they cancel the application. So we have to do a request for reinstatement. But the request for reinstatement has to have an explanation of why they canceled it and why it needs to be reinstated. And so I said, hey,
prefer a formal letter that explains this, and this. And it cranked me out a formal letter. I reviewed it. It looked great. I sent it over to SBA when I did my reapplication and when I submitted my new guidance. That probably saved me, I'm going to say, 45 minutes. Trying to get that letter to the quality I wanted probably saved me 45 minutes. The Jimmy Bean thing, that probably saved me 2 minutes. The SB, that probably saved me 10 minutes actually trying to wade through that document. All right, so let's keep going. My wife asked me last night, randomly, while we were sitting in bed, hey, what's Celine Dion's nationality? And I think she was wondering because Dion might be Latin. And so I think she was just wondering. Turns out she's Quebecois. And so, interesting. So she's French, Quebecois. This was from a post on Facebook that I saw. I mean, friends and family, like everyone, got Facebook, and it was talking about how Gavin Newsom was something with the something and something about like underage felonies, like underage trafficking felonies. And the post on Facebook made it seem like he was all for eliminating felonies for people who have sex trafficked 16 and 17-year-olds, which seem like super aggressive. Wow. I don't know crap about Gavin Newsom, but what I do know is that sounds like insanity. And so I went and I just posted the Facebook post, and this is sick, all right? Like, it's one of these enragey Facebook posts. And I don't like being enraged. I especially don't like being lied to. And I hate the culture of Facebook that it just like, rage, especially when something is dishonest. And so I realized that the quote was actually just like inaccurate, because as I did some research, what I love about ChatGPT now is it'll give you a summary, but then it'll link you to the actual articles, and you could just say, hey, I want 5 more articles on this, or 3 more articles on this, and it just gives you articles so you can do a bunch of research. And I realized, okay, he was actually pushing back against kind of the more left side of his coalition in California. He was saying no matter what the age is, if you sex with a minor for freaking, if you're doing trafficking or if you're paying minor, should be felony. I had a run-in on a public road with a guy who was just a world-class a-hole and who was hyper aggressive and hyper disrespectful, and said something to my wife that got me out of the car.
Before we go farther, I want to give you a little bit of an intro to the channel if you're new here. This is an entrepreneurship channel, and maybe a little bit of a guided tour of the type of stuff we do and why you might like it might be helpful. If I was to start anywhere on the channel right now, I would start right here at Trump's Tariffs Explained. One of the 7 companies that I own is a bandage company. It's called Crash Pads. We import directly from China. So the day after Liberation Day, in 2025, we did a video talking specifically about all the intricacies of how Trump's tariffs affect my business, my bandage company. And what I did was I got a whiteboard out and I just walked through all of the different pieces of Trump's tariffs and how they affect a small business, from profitability to pricing a product to building a supply chain to employment to sales taxes to who pays the tariffs. And if I'm honest, I think it's one of the better explanations of how tariffs affect an economy of anything I've seen or heard. And it did really well. And we just walked through all of the intricacies of that. If that doesn't interest you, maybe you'd be more interested in enormous rehab. I've always loved rehabbing houses. This is the biggest rehab I've ever attempted. And I've flipped at least 20 properties over the years. But this rehab cost us $1,060,000. It's going to be years of work. It's a big, gorgeous, interesting, complicated rehab. And we're letting people follow along the entire time as we rehab the whole thing. It's an incredible project. It's got this, it's big 6,000 foot McMansion, and it's got this beautiful sliding rock feature into rivers. It's a fascinating project. If you're just interested in, hey, real estate investment, how do I get there? This video, Never Buy Rentals Here, is the simplest math that I can do to help people understand what makes a good rental and what doesn't.
County, whatever the crap. And so I was like, okay, I know how to fix this plow. And so I sent a letter, which is a well-worded letter is, process. And so I sent a letter to the county council to let them know that this guy's like accosting citizens on the freaking roadway and being super disrespectful and doing it under the colors of his office. And I wrote a letter to the Spartanburg County attorney letting them know the actions that this guy taken, and that I think they're in risk of getting sued because someone's going to swing on this guy at some point. And if that guy has said, I'm county councilman, to that person, Spartanburg County is going to get dragged into that lawsuit. And I sent a letter to the police department in my town and let them know, hey, this is a problem. You've got an actual problem here. Turns out the guy had put up a no drive-through traffic on this road sign himself, and then demanded that the road crew working in the area put up another one and close off his road to through traffic. And when the construction crew wouldn't do that, he then pushed or assaulted one of the construction crew, and he just basically gave him what's coming. But instead of just stewing on how disrespected I felt, I sent some nicely worded letters, and those letters came in at just the right moment when he was also assaulting someone. And so it's not going to just go away for that guy. Again, I didn't want to spend my whole life on that. I didn't want to write a well-worded letter that was well-researched, and I understood who I was dealing with. And so I did that, and I worked on that for about an hour, but it probably would have taken me a good 10 or 15 hours and a lawyer to accomplish the same thing that just me and ChatGPT got done in an hour. I checked on another image that someone had shared on Facebook. I'm politically active, but I'm also a moderate. This post came up, and I was just wondering ChatGPT's capabilities. Can I copy and post a picture and it do an analysis of this? I was wondering if I could just drop a picture in it from Facebook, like a screen grab, and have ChatGPT do an analysis for me. It was earlier in the week. I didn't know ChatGPT could research something like that for me. I think there's enormous value in especially this. If you get enraged through Facebook or Twitter or whatever, put it into ChatGPT and see if it can go research all the articles that are related to it before you post it, before you share the division. I think there's real value in, let me do a little bit of research, but a little bit of research takes time. But with ChatGPT, a little bit of research takes no time. Turns out it can't take a picture and analyze the text out of the picture. They're not quite there yet with the technology, but I gave the basics of, oh, they said I can't do that. And then so basically I just took the text part and said, hey, this is what this says. Did this really happen? And then it kicked me back all of the articles on it. And so I was able to read up on it, kind of Kansas City News, Kansas City News. It was really well reported. Before I shared anything, before I got outraged, before I responded, hey, that doesn't sound quite right. Yeah, it does seem like she got deported. She was called into the Kansas City ICE to do like a green card interview. She was waiting to do a green card interview. She was trying to stay in the States, and they used that as like auspices to arrest her and deport her, which is pretty wild. But she is here illegally. She's been trying to stay here illegally. What was crazy about that, yeah, this was just they deported her. This wasn't her and the 2-year-old and the 4-year-old. This was just her. And so I got educated on that. Again, saved me some time. It kept me from getting outraged, or allowed me to be outraged in the proper way. I saw an interesting clip where, like, John Travolta shot some person, and, like, this guy from Tudors was in the movie, and I was like, hey, what movie is that? I've never seen that. And so I asked, based on this picture, what movie is this from? And it couldn't figure it out for me. It gave me a bunch of different options, as like, it could be any of these movies, really. And so it's like, it's probably Madison Walking. I was like, who are the other stars of Madison Walking? And I didn't see John Travolta there. And so I was like, okay, I should have just started with this prompt a little bit better. Who did this guy, Jonathan Rhys or whatever, and John Travolta co-star in? And they're like, oh, that is definitely Called from Paris to Love, which I've never seen. And it's rated R, but I don't really want to see it. And it didn't have very good ratings. And so I was like, okay, whatever, cool. 38% on Rotten Tomatoes. Never mind. Muffin Revenge spoof. Oh, this was fascinating. Again, this is like life and entrepreneurship. This is a fascinating. I've seen this 4 or 5 times, right? And it's like this guy is called onto a talk show today, morning, wow, whatever. And his eye got cut off by a jerk. And so I decided, I knew him from TV, and I decided to become an expert in defensive driving, get invited on his show, and I did. And I made him some muffins. How'd you like those muffins, Bob? It was hilarious, this hilarious spoof. It was just a clip. I was like, I wonder if that really happened. And so I posted, is there a clip on the internet where a guest claims to be a defensive driving instructor and to have made a muffins as a revenge, right? I was giving the thing, like, the prompt, like, hey, is this a thing? Like, did this happen somewhere? Because there's a news article somewhere out there in the world.
And it comes back and it's, no, it's from The Onion. Here's the clip. You can watch it. I had to go to Gaffney, South Carolina, which was far away, for a soccer game last night. And I was like, which high school's in Gaffney? And for some reason, my Google Maps thought I was going to go to some other place, not a Gaffney high school. I don't know. I just drove into the middle of stinking nowhere to go watch a soccer game. And I'm using ChatGPT for that. Turo Protection Explained. This week, I did a big recording on... I use ChatGPT whenever I record a script for this channel. And what I do is I copy and paste the script into what's called a custom GPT. And if you haven't used ChatGPT, it's an amazing tool. Also, what's amazing is like a custom GPT. You can create a little version of ChatGPT that only does one thing, that won't go outside of a box. It'll just do that one thing over and over and over. Whenever I create a video, and I'll do a whole video on this, like custom GPT's creations and uses, but when I do a video, I copy and paste the transcript, which I get from another program, into GPT, and it reviews what I've said, and then it recommends... It gives me like a starting point for like thumbnail, YouTube titles, YouTube thumbnails, YouTube opinions for my first 45 seconds for my hook, and keywords. And so I'm doing that all week long. When I prepare a video, I drop it into a custom GPT. It kicks all this back. At least saves me, like that probably saves me 30, 45 minutes per video that we put out on YouTube, just because I'm using ChatGPT really heavily. This was a thumbnail design request. I wanted it to prepare a thumbnail for me. It didn't. It was just a failure. Didn't save me any time. We're doing some research on gumball machines because I like the margins I'm seeing with gumball machines. When Turo was changing things that I wasn't thrilled about, I was considering selling off my Turo cars, and we were considering doing like gumball machines, vending machines, ATM machines. We were considering something that's set it and forget it, mechanical in nature. And so I still think that gumball machines is a business model that I'd like to consider. And so I was writing up a mock-up of, hey, we'll put a gumball machine in place for free. Just give me a call. I'm an entrepreneur. We've got really good retention from places that have it. I was just giving my staff an idea of the type of advertising flyer that I would like to see prepared. And so I was like, hey, go find this machine, go figure out like how much it's going to cost. So that's like a very early stage, considering maybe exiting Turo at some point. Even if I don't exit Turo, I think there's a job for someone in my orbit, like helping expanding a gumball machine empire. I love those things. Anyways, this is a department DOS. Oh, this was fascinating. I was looking through my debit card, as everyone does, where you look at, you know, like, where did all my money go? And I found this strange debit that I just couldn't put my finger on, right? Tyler, Division of Code, Tyler, Kurt, Florida, date, blah, 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 whatever. Okay, what in the crap is that? And so I just dropped it into ChatGPT and I said, hey, any idea what this charge is for? And it went through and it looked at all the little pieces and it looked at everything. And it appears to be like a municipal government state fee from Florida business filing. I'm like, oh, that's an LLC filing for Bedrock. They have my card on file as a backup to Bedrock's card because every once in a while our corporate cards will act up. And when our corporate cards act up, they just run my card. And so I was like, okay, I'm just going to reimburse myself that from Bedrock. I didn't know what it was, couldn't decipher it. ChatGPT knew it in less than a second. Saved me probably 10 minutes. This is an interesting question I had about my religion. Usually when someone requests a blessing for healing, you go with someone else. You go two people. It's a two-parted thing. One person anoints, one person seals and blesses. And I didn't know off the top of my head when my beautiful mother-in-law had a kidney infection if I was allowed to go do that alone because I could not find a second person. And so I did a quick bit of research about the church. Hey, the guidance from the church, can we go give that blessing alone, or does it have to be two people? And now I realized that in that trying to find someone, one of my buddies was also sick, and he requested a blessing, and I totally forgot. So glad I remember now. I'll go tonight. So if you need one person, two people, and like it searched the internet, and it found the church's writings on the subject, and it's like, hey, you can go give a blessing of healing alone if you can't find another person. My whole life I've been a Republican, kind of a moderate Republican. I'm still moderate. I'm for moderate independent now. But I thought that was photoshopped and debunked widely. But in the video clip that I was looking at, Trump was like
adamant that he has literally theme written on his knuckles. It turns out it's false, but I wanted to make sure before I post that on my public to my friends, like, hey, this is a flat inaccuracy, and it bothers me that Trump either doesn't know, has been told wrong, and doesn't know, or doesn't care, because I think it affects the public discourse and what's going on. He may be an MS-13 member, but it certainly doesn't say MS-13 on his hands. He may very well be a killer and a murderer. He hasn't been adjudicated that in any court of law. I was just telling my friends and family, I think that you have to have some judgment before you send someone to a foreign, international, maximum security terrorist prison, which is what CCOT is. I'm fine with them sitting out of the country if he's here illegally. I'm fine with that. What I wasn't fine with was with no due process getting sent to a foreign maximum security terrorist prison. And I'm especially not fine with Trump repeatedly arguing with this interviewer, holy hell, like, it says MS-13 on his knuckles where it doesn't. It was like clearly Arial font. Someone had put it there to indicate that those things might represent that. But again, it might represent and says it literally written out on his knuckles. I was just like, I can't handle this. Like, this level of misunderstanding from the president so that everyone listening is like, he's got MS-13 written on his knuckles in Arial font. No, it was Photoshopped. It was clearly Photoshopped. I did a lot of research on that personally, because when I post something on Facebook, I do a ton of research because I absolutely hate the environment that we're in, where people will post just garbage that like enrages people and divides the country. Hate that, hate that, hate that, won't be a part of it. Have you noticed? Like, ChatGPT is this miracle. It's this freaking miracle. I'm not even a couple days through this. I use it all the time. I've used it to look at how to get my Zoom clips to record with higher quality. I've used it to figure out how Juliet in Silo Season 2 hurt her arm, because I didn't remember she hurt her arm, but she had a big thing. I've used it to look up videos with good ratios on YouTube. I've used it to look things that are political so that I don't get radicalized, so that I can actually see the news, not just the division. I've used it to get an update on the 2025 NFL draft. I've used it to inquire about a property that I was interested in. I've used it to look at the meaning or the definition behind wedding. I've used it to look at kettlebell workouts because I would like to at 42 now that my metabolism apparently doesn't work quite as well. I've used it to look up kettlebell workouts and whose kettlebell workouts the best reviewed. I looked up a person that I knew who had passed away. If there was anything I could do there. I'm using it all the time. And it's super effective. It's super effective. If you're not using ChatGPT yet, I cannot even state. It's like you're not using Google yet with Google came on the scene. Okay, if you enjoy this style content, what I try to help people understand is this channel isn't a technology channel. It's not a ChatGPT channel. This is an entrepreneurship channel. I've run 7 companies. I started within 17 to 30, depending on how you count. This whole channel is just to get information out there and help entrepreneurs and their business grow, help people learn some of the lessons I've learned without having to go through the same things I've gone through. All right, if you enjoyed that long walkthrough of what it's like to be an entrepreneur and what it's like to think through my world, how I look at problems, how I think through problems, I think the next video you're going to enjoy is Turo's Insurance is not insurance. I'm going to post that right here. Basically, I did the same exact thing. If you've ever considered starting a Turo fleet, we've got 23 cars in Charleston on Turo right now as we speak. However, the insurance gets tricky and the fine print gets tricky, and I do the same type of walkthrough, not as free-flowing thought. It's a little more prepared, but it really walks through the intricacies of Turo's insurance, which turns out is not insurance. I'm going to post that right here.